action. Okay, so we've tightened down our set screws. I did want to mention that in our case, the bridge forms a cradle where the piezo will be mounted here. Depending on where your lug is mounted on your drum and where this screw is here, is depending on how you're going to turn this bridge. You can do what I've done and form the cradle to the bridge to get your 2-inch measurement, to get get this the piezo, the head foam, up to the appropriate level, which is the head will be 8 inches, or I'm sorry, 1/8 of an inch below this point when applying it. So basically it'll push down that foam. So depending on where your lugs mount is depending on how you'll have this bridge. You can actually turn this bridge, which I've done in some cases. I don't want to turn this one, but you can turn basically this entire bridge assembly around, which I'll show you here. I don't want to scratch up the drum doing that. I'll show you a little bit. But you see how it, you turn it the other way around. So you're basically going to mount it this way, and obviously you'll want to have your set screws facing the other way so you don't have these ugly nuts on the top of the head. But this is another way that you can utilize the same space. You're using the same flat side. Nothing really changes in how the bridge assembles. You still set this inside the cradle, inside, the center part of the bridge still sets inside the two outer sides of the bridge, and then this part will just give your measurement from there. Now in this drum's case I cannot do that because I have, these are double mounted screws, so I have another screw down here that will bump into this spot, and that's not what I really need to do anyway. This position here is the perfect placement for this specific drum. But if you have to flip this bridge, that is fine to flip it. Again, just plan for your set screws to be reversed as well, just because you don't want the nuts showing and you don't want them, on the upward side of the drum. Okay, so I'm just going to give these a good snug without going completely tight because I have not done my measurements yet. And I want to level as well. So the first thing I'm going to check is to see where I'm sitting on that 2-inch, which I'm perfect on that side and I'm perfect on that side. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a level across it just to make sure that my bridge is level this way as well as level this way. So in this case I have 2 spirit levels, which will do the job for me. You can always turn yours back and forth however to accomplish that. So I'm gonna just make sure that that's level. Know that my table may or may not be a little out of whack too. So that's perfect. So you just want to make sure it's, you don't want your PAs, you don't want your foam sitting at a completely cocked angle. You will have that piece of foam will be 1/8 of an inch into the drum head. So it'll even if I just did there, even if it's turned a little bit, which I'm just gonna stop talking and give that a good crank in there. There we go. Much better. And then I'm going to double check my measurement. double check my level. And that's perfect. Pretty sure my table's a little out of line, but I'm just going to double check this one over here to make sure I didn't push it down. Yeah, I did push it down just a little bit. Crank that down. There we go. Do the same thing on this side. Okay, good, I'm good with that. Now, it's time to mount our center piezo. And I'm going to put a little bit more alcohol on our towel. And I'm going to just wipe the center of that real quick. That's where I'm going to stick that piezo to. Now, when sticking the piezo, always keep in mind you don't want to push down on the piezo. There's no need for it. The sticky is it's sticky enough that as soon as you apply it, it'll pretty much hold. And then when you put your foam pad over top of it, you don't have to push down on that really hard either. So it's going to stick. You're going to be fine. You'll put your head on. Everything will be flattened. Everything will be snug and in place without having to put your finger on it. You don't want to put your finger, and you don't want to push down and on the piezo. And you don't want that brass or that gold metal there. You don't want that touching any piece of metal. So you want to make sure your set screws are far enough behind to where you can set that in there without touching any pieces of metal. That's especially important in your snare drum, and we'll go over that with the snare drum. Now, I am a big fan of cable management, so I know that my female 1/4 inch in is going to come into this hole, into this vent hole here. So I want this without crimping these two. This red and black here, you don't want to go this way and then have to bend that back, unless of course that's what's going to work out. But you see how that's kind of at an angle. So what I would rather do is I'd rather do all my cable management off to this side, and then when I tape it up, I'll make sure that there's no crimps and there's no hard bends in the line. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this one. And again, you can use your razor blade to, very carefully pull this piece of backing, which you'll see why. You probably could use that. And again, I'm running that straight. I'm making sure that I'm centered. You can use your piece of metal again. Make sure you're over top of your lugs, and then your center. And again, just set it, and it's good. You don't need to push it down. Can't stress that enough. There's no need to push that down. Now I'm going to install our 1/4 inch female. Now, for those of you that cannot remove your grommet here, or don't want to remove your grommet, there are pigtails to where you can where the wires will come in through that same vent hole, and you won't have the same mounting bracket. It'll just wire tie, and you'll have pigtails sticking out to where you plug in your cables. I've chose to do the other way around. I like the neatness of using the vent hole, and I just think it's it's just kind of cool anyway. So plus, you know, for cable management, I like the idea of just plugging in the drum. But for those of you that can't do that, you know, Pintec does give a pigtail option, and will cut it 3 to 6 inches, so you have plenty of slack on that pigtail line on the outside of your drum. Again, call Pintec on that, and whatever's going to work for your specific application. They will be more than happy to work with you. The nice thing about working with a company like Pintec Drums is the fact that when you call, somebody there that will answer the phone that knows exactly what you need and exactly what needs to happen for your application. They are made in America, which is important to a lot of people, and you know, it's nice to be able to call and the person that picks up the phone knows exactly what's going on in the manufacturing end of things, and has done installs, you know, for the last 10 plus years. So they know exactly what your problems are, may or may not be, and they're always available for that. So you saw we put the washer on, we put that nut back on, we've actually just thrown our 1/4 inch female into our vent hole. Okay, and I'm not going to I'm just going to snug that finger wise. I'm not going to put the open end wrench on that yet, just because I want to make sure that our cable management is squared away, so I can turn this back and forth, and make sure that I get the right length on the cables, or the right bend in the cables to do my cable management. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove our lug screw from where we're going to put our rim trigger. Okay, and the same thing goes for the rim trigger. You have sticky and then your piezo side. Okay, so your sticky is obviously going to go up against the drum, and the lug screw will go right through that hole. So let's do that now. Just pull this screw. Go ahead and apply. And you can tell I've got all my screws loosened up for the purpose of the video. Now there's a piece of tape on the back of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move that out of the way. Again with my rubbing alcohol, and actually we'll put a little bit more on the towel. And I'm just going to wipe where that sticky is going to end up sticking. Now when it comes to this one, you can tape it down. I've left, when I do my testing, I don't stick that one right away, just so I can do all my testing prior to actually sticking it. If you do have to remove, for whatever reason, if you have to remove one of your piezos or sticky tape, get yourself a razor blade and just get up under it and slowly work at that piece of sticky. Same thing with the backside here. Just slowly grab that razor blade and, you know, slice that off. And then when you have, you know, this in your hand, you can clean off the residue, and the same thing with wherever you have it stuck to either the metal or the side of the wood. You can clean that off again and re-stick it. Pintec supplies plenty of these extra dots as well as the blue dots. So if you do need to re-stick it or take it apart or whatever the case may be, you have all the tools to do so. And again, we have extra just in case we've damaged something here, or if we damage something down the road. I have a head trigger and a rim trigger still left over. Alright, so I am very sure, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that piece of sticky tape. And again, you can use the back of a razor blade or X-Acto knife or whatever you're comfortable with. And I'm going to set this rim trigger in place just like that. Okay, and now I'm keeping in mind my cable management and what I'm going to want to do with it as well as I'm doing this, and that's something that you're going to want to keep in mind while you're doing your conversion as well, as you're going to want to keep your cable management in mind as you do the process. So knowing what I need to do and where I need to be is crucial to my process and to the cable management aspect. So now we put on one last piece with the foam piece. Now again, we have the gray side and the black side, or a darker gray. This side's pretty durable. It's a harder piece of foam, and this is pretty soft and spongy. The spongy side is up, touching the head, and this other side, the harder side, is going to go down on top of the piezo. So we're going to remove that blue dot, and then we have sticky side there, and we're just going to set it right on that trigger, making sure we, cover it round, and that'll do it. You don't need to push down, don't need to do any of that. The head will do all that work for us. So what I'm going to do now is, before I put any heads on and before I take this piece off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test both the head and the rim triggers through my module before I close this drum up and send it on its way. I'm going to and tighten this screw. I'm going to end up tightening that screw down as well afterwards. But we'll go through that. Let me do my test and make sure that both of our triggers are working properly, and then I will tighten down the female jack input as well as that rim trigger.